Unable to contain his restlessness, Gregory called the one man he knew would help him. Win his wife back, his lifelong best friend and partner at the law firm they owned, Michael. Michael had been the best man at Gregory's wedding and was the godfather to all three of his children. When Michael's wife, Angelica, answered the phone, Gregory groaned inwardly. He'd never understood why Michael had married such a disagreeable woman, she shouted for her husband, and soon Michael came on the line.
Ooh, Gregory, is everything all right? Kimberly's not having a meltdown now that the last kid's left, is she?
The concern in Michael's voice sent a sharp pang through Gregory's chest. The bitterness toward his wife simmered as he recounted what had happened.
Ooh, I'll be there in 10 minutes.
Michael said after listening, as if sensing that Gregory needed someone to listen more than to advise. True to his word, Michael knocked on Gregory's door exactly 10 minutes later, familiar with the house from their vacations. He punched in the code and entered when Gregory called out for him to come in. Gregory remained at his desk, his gaze fixed on the surface as Michael entered the den and helped himself to a glass of bourbon. He looked at Gregory, his face a mixture of confusion and concern.
Ooh, what did you do?
Gregory wasn't sure if Michael was asking about what he'd done to cause the situation or what he'd done afterward. She thinks I was having an affair, or even two, apparently, for a long time now. The bile rose in his throat as he spoke. Each word stoked his anger further. How dare Kimberly accuse him without giving him a chance to defend himself?
Ooh, were you?
Michael's voice was devoid of emotion. As the question sank in, Gregory's anger surged. He leapt from his chair, stormed around the desk, and swung a fist that connected squarely with Michael's chin. Pain shot through his knuckles from the impact. The shame came a heartbeat later, hot and immediate.
Ooh, I guess that answers my question.
Michael said, unruffled, smiling slightly as he rubbed his chin and placed a steadying hand on Gregory's shoulder. I'm sorry, Gregory said, already sinking back into his chair. What are you thinking, Mike? I would never cheat on Kimberly. I love her, and the fact that she believes I'd do something like that, it kills me. He pressed his aching hand against his knee, exhausted by the day's events.
Ooh, what are you going to do?
Michael asked, never one to waste time with trivial questions. He got straight to the core of any problem, a trait that had helped make their firm so successful Michael could fix anything. I figure I have a few options. One would be to sit here and be furious with her, Gregory said, forcing a humorless smile. Two would be to hunt down whoever filled her head with these lies and make them answer for it. And three, to fight for her, to make her see how wrong she is. Michael regarded him with an unreadable expression, his face briefly expressionless. The rid mark on his chin reminded Gregory of the emotional roller coaster he was on.
Ooh, well, first things first.
Michael said at last.
Ooh, we need to figure out what made Kimberly think you were unfaithful.
With that, Michael dove right into plotting a solution. Gregory felt grateful to have such a supportive friend, an ally in the fight to save his marriage. He could only hope the spirit of Christmas might open Kimberly's heart enough. For a miracle, long after Michael left the den, Gregory wandered into the kitchen, gazing at the spotless surfaces. His wife had even cleaned the kitchen before leaving him. The thought lingered in his mind as he paced the empty house. Suddenly, the phone rang, pulling him back. On his way to answer it, he tripped over one of Megan's swimming trophies. He sucked in a breath, resisting the urge to curse. He picked up the receiver. With a sigh, his voice barely audible. Hello? A woman's voice came on the line.
Door slammed through them. Mrs. Davenport. He's with her again. He bought her a teddy. Check his credit card statements. Why do you stay with a man who flaunts his affairs right in your face?
The line went dead before he could respond. The caller had clearly mistaken him for Kimberly. Gregory stared at the phone, stunned. He knew he should have been out tonight. Kimberly would have been the one to receive that call. Replaying the words in his mind, he remembered buying a teddy earlier, but it hadn't been for a mistress or even for Kimberly. He'd picked it up as a gag gift for Alan in accounting, who'd recently finished his studies to become a pastor. The bright red teddy was meant to be a funny reminder of what Alan was giving up. Son of a... Gregory began, but the phone rang again. He let it ring 4 times until his daughter's voice came on the answering machine. He couldn't bring himself to speak to his children just yet. He had to figure out what was going on. The woman's voice from the phone call continued to haunt him. He knew he'd heard it before. When Michael didn't respond to his shouted calls, Gregory picked up his cell and dialed his friend.
Ooh. Careful, Gregory.
Michael answered dryly.
Ooh. You're calling more than a teenage girl.
I just got a call from our mystery woman. She told Kimberly that the teddy I bought today was for my mistress, Gregory said, unable to keep the disgust from his voice.
Ooh. Well, that's our first real clue. Give me 20 minutes and make sure your fax machine is on.
Michael hung up without another word. Michael returned half an hour later, a satisfied grin on his face.
Ooh. Phone records.
I don't know why I didn't think of that myself, Gregory admitted.
Ooh. Because your first reaction was anger, your second was violence. Not much left over for rational thinking.
Are you sure this is legal?
Ooh. You're pulling the phone records from your own line, and Jack won't mind you did him a favor back in the day.
Michael reassured him. They sat together, watching the fax machine as it printed out the call log. Gregory was grateful Michael stayed by his side. That evening, filling the silence Kimberly's absence left behind. After the initial shock wore off, he began to see Kimberly's actions as a defection. She hadn't trusted him enough even to ask about the accusations. She'd simply taken the caller at their word. His goal was to shove proof of his innocence in her face, to make her understand what she'd put him through. Then, perhaps, he'd graciously take her back after she groveled a bit. The fax emitted a series of beeps, and Gregory's heart lifted for the first time that evening. As soon as the last page printed, he snatched up the sheets and scanned the incoming call list.
Ooh. Well?
Michael prompted. Gregory sighed, staring at the number listed right before his daughter's call. It had come from his office. Now he had to decide what to do. He could march to the hotel where Kimberly was staying. He'd check the charges on the joint credit card as soon as she left and knew her location. He could shove the phone records at her, as he'd planned. But the more he thought about it, the more he realized it would only escalate the situation. Someone had poisoned Kimberly against him, feeding her lies until her heart had turned. He wanted to believe she'd struggled to accept it at first, that she hadn't mentioned it because she didn't fully believe it. Though he felt betrayed, he still loved her as deeply as the day he married her. His phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. Grace's number flashed on the caller ID. He groaned, knowing that if he didn't answer, she'd come storming over to find out what was going on. "Hello, my angel," Gregory said.
Basically a survival skill. Hi, Daddy. I was calling to check on Mama. I thought she might need some moral support now that the last chick has flown the coop.
Gregory closed his eyes, debating how to respond. "She's so inconsolable that she took the Amex to Pittsburgh," he said finally. She mentioned something about presents. It wasn't a complete lie. She had taken the Amex, and she had mentioned Christmas shopping.
Basically a survival skill. Oh, retail therapy at its finest. Why didn't you go?
Someone has to work to pay off that Amex bill.
Basically a survival skill. Ah, work your mistress.
Grace laughed. Her words hit him hard. She was right, in a way. Work had been his mistress, but not in the way she thought. He'd cheated on Kimberly emotionally by prioritizing his job over their relationship.
Basically a survival skill. Look, Daddy, I have to go. Give Mama my love.
Grace said, hanging up before he could reply. Gregory stared at the phone, guilt flooding him. If he'd been more attentive, more focused on his marriage, Kimberly might not have been so easily swayed by lies. He wouldn't have let the distance between them grow. He'd courted her with passion once, and it wasn't too late to do it again. Determined, he crumpled the phone records and threw them into the wastebasket. Gregory smiled to himself. What better way to prove his love than to win her heart all over again?